Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Digivolving Spirits 01 Wargreymon. So this is a new line which it's from Bandai Tamashii, so I would almost describe it as a hybrid between like Figuarts and like the old school Digivolving figures that we got, I think both in Japan and America back in the day. So it's kind of interesting. I felt like checking it out. This was basically a curiosity purchase because, well, of general curiosity, and also they're doing a Digivolving one, and that looks cool, and I want to get that one, so I wanted to see what they were like. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Before we get to the main event itself, I just want to address how really awesome the packaging is. It's fully closed, not like, I was expecting, honestly, a cheaper looking package with, like, you know, the window in front, but it has this really cool artwork of Wargreymon and Agumon on there. It's really neat. I dig it a lot. I just kind of appreciate it. Like, I got the box of all my HLJ stuff. I'm like, wow, this looks really awesome. And then on the back it shows you, you know, the two different forms, and it's like once gifted to the Digidestined. They used actual American terms on there. And then the other one that's coming out, I believe, next month is Garurumon. And like I said, they're doing, Digivolving as well. So anyway, we're starting him off in Wargreymon mode because that's what he comes as when you get him out of the box. I was debating on which one to do the transformation from. But before we get started, I want to just do a brief comparison to some other similar-ish releases in terms of Tamashii stuff. So here he is next to just standard Figuarts Wargreymon. That's the original version, not the designer version. And then here's the Digimon, like, movie style one. So as you can see, he's quite a bit taller than both of them. His coloring's kind of a mix between the two. He's got the coloring similar to that, but he's got the more metallic finish of that. But yeah, he's quite a bit larger, but I just felt like that was worth at least showing off, and I just realized that I forgot to put my review light on, so that's why it's kind of darkish in here. There we go, that's better. Okay, I was like, why is it so dark? Because one of my lights is broken. I'm like, but it shouldn't be that bad because there was no light on it at all. Okay, so overall, I think this guy looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and say right off the bat that I think both modes look better than I thought they would. Not that I thought they would look awful, but you know, with these types of figures, they are usually a little bit weird because you can always tell the little bits from, you know, the transformation, and you can still tell there. Like, you can obviously tell his little, like, wing thrusters, whatever you want to call him, are, you know, Agumon's head. You can tell that, obviously. But I still think it looks pretty good, and I think they did a pretty solid job on it. Especially, like, in the details and stuff. Like, the head sculpt, I think, is really well done, and as I already pointed out, the paint is kind of this darker color, and it looks really cool and metallic, and I think it looks really nice. My only real problem with the head is that the hair kind of prevents it from getting a little bit larger range of motion, but I think the details on it are really well done. Same thing goes for like the chest details. The paint on here looks really nice. This looks pretty good, pretty animated-ish accurate in terms of color. And you've got like the die-cast metal pieces here. It's coming out a little bit there. But yeah, you can tell, like, the little panels are going to become Agumon and stuff like that. And, like, here, the claws, you can see Agumon's claws over it, which is kind of funny, because on one hand, it's kind of stupid, and, like, I wish they would have found a way to fix that, but on the other, it does kind of look neat, like Wargreymon's claws coming out of Agumon's. That's kind of cool in theory, so I think that's pretty good. But overall, I think he's pretty good looking. And also, I forgot to mention it, but it says on the box, you know, it's got die-cast pieces, so it has a nice heft to it, so it feels kind of like a worth your money there. And there's the back. You can see Agumon's head and then that little panel-y piece, and you can cover it as much as you want. Like, even as matter. Wow, that was a sentence that got away from me. But like, as much as you would try to possibly hide the paneling for basically Agumon's body with his head, it's gonna look weird either way. So it does offer you a bit of articulation, which is kind of nice. Like, you have a pretty solid range of motion here. You have a little bit of an elbow joint here, so you can get some little bits of poses there and some swiveling. Same thing with the legs as well. It's on a nice ball joint. Just got to watch out for the panels and stuff. And you get some bending. It can look a little weird, you know, because of the way it is. And then the feet are so gigantic, which is something I meant to draw specific attention to when I was showing the other Wargreymons. But because of the nature of this being a transformer, it's going to have that weird problem with the giant feet, so that's a thing. But yeah, that's pretty much it, and as I said, you do get some head articulation, like there. It's a little bit limited because of the hair. I wish that was tweaked just a slight bit. Okay, so now we're going to do the transformation. I might cut away a couple times. I'm going to basically try to give you the gist of what you're going to need to do to transform it, or the gist, whatever. But, you know, I'll cut away me like lining things up, because you do not need to see me just lining things up. So I guess what we can do first is sort of just get the top ready. I'm sort of going in instruction order, and this is pretty easy. Honestly, whenever I get a transformer of any kind, I like to try to figure it out on my own, and I was able to, the instructions do streamline it a bit more, but it's pretty easy to do, honestly. It's basic stuff, but some of the stuff just takes a little bit to line up. So basically you can fold the horns in, or the horn in, and then this one out to sort of get it out of the way there. And then you're going to want to basically be doing some stuff with his arms. Oh, I almost forgot. I kept all this whole time. I'm an idiot. These little wings here are supposed to be out. That is Wargreymon mode. I always forget those. But so that right there, Wargreymon mode, and then fold them back, Agumon mode. There we go. So that's already prepped. Okay. So basically, it's going to take a little bit of finagling. Things can get in the way of each other if you're not careful, and I'm sure it'll happen multiple times. But these little hinges here that attach the arms are connected. So when you move one, you move the other. So you're going to want to rise them out of here. So we're going to sort of do that, because that's going to be important later. And I actually did this step last, and didn't even realize it did it. And it's kind of weird because it's a little bit limited in the way that it can do it, which just is kind of strange to me, but it's whatever. Okay, so you're going to want to do that, just sort of get them out and around, just sort of like out of the way-ish. Oh yeah, and probably want to move this out of the way too, so just kind of get that out of your way. And then basically, you're just going to take this whole piece here and lift it up and out. It's going to give you a lot more like leverage. Not leverage is the right word, but a lot more room to work. So you can sort of see how this is going. And you're going to basically just clamp Agumon's head around here. They're on these little ball joints, and I wish they had done something different here. This is probably my biggest complaint about the transformation. Like, it's so restrictive because it only has like a little cup right here for the ball joint, that if you just move it ever so slightly, it'll pop off. I think there was a better ball joint mechanism that they could have used so that it just gets a solid all-around movement. See, like right here, you have to do it just so, otherwise it's gonna pop out. Okay, so basically, just do this all off frame. But do that and it'll snap together and you have his head pretty much ready. So you got that done. I did that the first time I transformed it without looking at the instructions. So, okay. So now for a tiny detail, you're going to want to flip his toenails around. This is something that I want to do now before I forget to. So do that. And then you're going to end up just flipping him around. So you might as well do that right now. And then open up his legs and make sure that this goes through it like that before you close them out. Because right here, the legs are going to fit right through these holes. So like this. And then take these little like armor pieces and fold them up. They're basically going to be storing in here. I know it seems like kind of a mess, but like when you have it, it all sort of makes sense. Like, and the more you start to do things, one of his toe fell off. I'll get that later. But the more you start to, you know, get all the pieces going, the more you'll just see like the pieces of the puzzle coming together. But so you're going to want to sort of snap these in here, and the armor is going to store in here, basically in Agumon's back half of his body. And it's kind of a tight fit, to be honest, especially with this little crotch piece here. Honestly, if you aren't really bad about losing things, I would recommend removing the crotch piece, because I did that the first time I transformed it, and it made just a little bit of difference in pulling this all together, because we're basically going to be jamming this all together, and it just, I don't know, just makes it a little bit easier is all I'm trying to say. Okay, so for this, you got these flipped around now, and you're basically just going to, like, invert his, actually you want to do this, and then flip it. There we go. It's a little bit confusing because I've never had it where you just like basically fold his foot around. So make sure you have the right facing it the right way. There we go. Okay, that's good enough. I think that's the right way. It might be the other way. I can't remember. We'll fix that in a second. The bottom line is you want to get these facing the right way. And the toenails are important for stabilization. Like, you can transform it without shifting the toenails around, but it's going to make them less stable when standing. Okay, so now basically I'm going to show off what we're going to be doing, and then I'll just sort of cut away to it being done, because there's a lot of just sort of fine-tuning it. Before I do that, just real simple, you fold in the metallic Wargreymon claws to get the Agumon mode. Okay, so basically we're going to be closing this in. This is going to come down over top, and these pieces are going to go on the side. So you can sort of see it all forming. And of course, we're going to want to move Agumon's head a little bit more forward. We're going to actually kind of place it down like that. So basically, we're going to be closing all this together, encasing all of this like this, paneling it. There's little various pegs and holes you'll see that line up. One thing I do want to note is you're going to want to make sure that these little hinge things like line up right here with these right here. So you're basically just going to be putting it all together like this. It's pretty simple. It's just a lot of finagling, and it's like one of those things where if one piece is off, it'll throw the whole other thing off, and you have to go around and say, okay, this was off here, and it creates a domino effect. So I'm just going to cut away to that being done, but I hope you get the gist of it. But if I left it, it would just honestly be like a minute of me going, so that was no fun. So I'll break. Okay, I got it together. It took a couple extra minutes than I thought. As I said, my main problems with the transformation are the way that the flaps on this are designed, because it's so sensitive that you can basically only turn it one direction. And then right here you can see it's still bulging out a little bit. I couldn't get it perfect. Is trying to store the stupid armored knee things is obnoxious. Like I said, you're better off just taking out the crotch piece. I wish they had done something better with it, because it just barely fits. Like I said, the first time I did it, when I didn't use the instructions, I just took out the crotch piece, and the second time I managed to do it on a fluke, but this time it's like, it just needs some tweaking. Like, it's not a terrible idea, but it just needs some tweaking of some sort. But as you can see, here we have Agumon just in his Agumon mode, and I actually don't think he looks that bad. I mean, obviously you can tell like all the little, you know, kibble pieces from Wargreymon. You can see his arm under there. You can see this under here. I also wish there was like a piece I could clamp over here to give him a full regular hand, so you can pose him without seeing the guts of Wargreymon. And you can just sort of generally tell that, you know, this is a transformable figure. But it's actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Like I said, I didn't think it was going to be awful, but based on the pictures and stuff, I thought it would be more obvious. And while it is obvious in certain ways, it actually doesn't look half bad. And especially if you get him in a certain pose, like right there, you can see it a little bit, but it looks like a little Agumon figure. And it's probably one of the better done jobs I've seen at hiding it, in my opinion. So I'm actually quite pleased with it. But overall, I actually do quite like this figure, a little bit more than I thought I would. It's got a real nice quality feel to it. I talk about in Figuarts reviews all the time how lately a lot of them haven't had that feeling of a quality where it's like worth the money you spent on it. But because of the die-cast pieces, it does feel like that. But also all of the joints and little like ball joints and movements and all that, they all feel pretty solid. Like, you'll still get pieces that pop up every now and then because of the way the joint's designed is kind of crappy, like I said. But they all feel solid and well made, and I think this is pretty well done. I think all things considered, it looks pretty decent in both modes. A little ugly-ish in some aspects, but honestly better than some I've seen before. And overall, I think if you're a fan of like the Figuarts quality and the old transforming Digimon figures, I can recommend checking this out. I don't think it's quite worth the retail money that you have to spend on it right now, but if it goes down in price later, if you're a fan of either or both of those things, I can at least recommend giving it a look. But anyway, that's about it. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's Awesome Rider, signing out.